Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guardians of the CLE podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Kirby. With me here, as always, is my co-host, James Elifritz, who is checking in with us here tonight. He's going to handle our big announcement here momentarily, but just to kind of kick things off, I understand a lot of us are frustrated. We thought we were getting into the cupcake part of our schedule here, and the Guardians offense has been non-existent since Washington. The pitching was subpar in Washington, and it brings us, all that adds up to a 3-3 week against the lowly Nationals and Tigers. We have a lot to get into. Once James makes this announcement, he's got some stuff to take care of, so I'm going to be riding solo like Jason Derulo said so well in his hit song. But
that was smooth.
James, we've been hyping up this big announcement all week here. I know people are interested in what this is. Why don't you go ahead and give everybody the good news?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're excited to announce that on Wednesday, July 19th at 6:35 p.m., Mel and I will be on hand at Canal Park in Akron, Ohio at the Akron Rubber Ducks game versus the Richmond Flying Squirrels.
I hope no squirrels fly. I hate squirrels.
Yeah, I don't like shit flying around.
There's no real flying squirrel. Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
So anyways, we will be on hand July 19th down at Akron at the Akron Rubber Ducks game. But we will not just be there to watch baseball. Is that what you wanted to do, Mel? Just go watch baseball? Or did you want to maybe do something, a little bit extra, right?
I've always wanted to do something.
Well, and it's something that, it's an opportunity that's been presented to us. And we're here to announce that Mel and I will be throwing out the first pitch at the Akron Rubber Ducks game that night, July 19th.
Yes.
So we would love for a lot of our listeners that's available I know it's a Wednesday night. Sometimes it's tough. It can be a school night for some people. And when I say school night, even adults, man, we need to get to bed early sometimes. I was going to
say summer school in July.
I know. No, the kids will be out. So the kids, if you're listening, keep your parents up and have them take you down to Canal Park to the Ducks game. Mel and I be on hand, get that absolute honor to throw out a first pitch at a minor league baseball game. It's going to be a great experience. How do you feel about that, Mel?
Yeah, it's something I never really could have dreamed of ever doing. I watch, all the special guests throw out first pitches, and it always looks so easy. So I'm going to be curious. I'm going to start practicing in the backyard now because I don't want to go out and Travis Kelce spike it before home plate. So that's my main goal, just get it to home plate.
Yeah, we're going to have to definitely get loose on that. Got to get some practice in. Don't want to embarrass ourselves.
I got a cannon, though. I might throw it into the seats if there weren't a net there.
That might not be a bad idea. I'm sure people.
Former softball player here.
Yeah. So yeah, we're super excited for the opportunity that we had been talking about this with our guest, play-by-play announcer, Marco Lanave, that we've been able to be granted this opportunity, and we're really looking forward to it. So we would like to have a lot of our listeners show up. Check us out, find us, come up, talk to us. We'd love to talk some baseball, Ducks baseball, obviously Guards baseball.
Yes.
And just to get to know you. We really appreciate all of our listeners. It'd be nice to really meet some of you in person.
Absolutely. Very well said. Super pumped and excited for this opportunity. After you're done listening to this episode, why don't you go back and check out our episode with Marco Lanave during spring training. It was excellent guy. He was lots of knowledge. He was great to have on. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And do him a favor, buy tickets, come see us, come see the Ducks play some ball. And like I said, we're just looking forward to the opportunity, and we want to meet as many people as possible.
All right. Thank you, Jamie.
Good luck, Mel. Talk to you later.
It's my moment. We also are slated to have on a very special guest next Wednesday. And I say we're slated to because it depends on if something happens at the major league level. So we're slated to have Tanner Bybee's dad, Scott Bybee, on next Wednesday. But again, all that depends on if Tanner Bybee just so happens to get called up to the major leagues and makes a start up there. So we're going to see how all this plays out, but that's the plan. So make sure you're following the podcast page at Guardians OTCLE to stay up to date on the latest news regarding that. But what do I mean by Tanner Bybee coming up to the majors? Obviously, it's been a hot topic on social media amongst all of you and me included. And we're going to start there tonight. Hunter Gaddis was optioned to AAA yesterday to make room for Brian Rocchio, who literally just got to ride up I-71 north to Detroit. Then he got to go right back to Columbus with a lineup card in his hand for a game he didn't even get into. I have a lot to say about that. It just really irked me, and I know I talked with some of you about this on Twitter last night. So we're gonna get into that here shortly, but Hunter Gaddis made his final start in Detroit on Tuesday. He got knocked around yet again. He gave up 3 runs on 8 hits in 5 innings. This obviously coming after a very poor start against the New York Yankees. I happened to be in attendance for that. He didn't look good at all. And his issue seems to be he really, really loses velocity once it gets to the 4th or 5th inning or so. So I do think he could be successful as a bullpen arm. But his velocity just tails way too much to be a viable candidate for the rotation, in my opinion. He was throwing 90-mile-an-hour beach balls right down the middle in the 5th inning in Detroit on Tuesday. So with that being said, the question now becomes who replaces him? So obviously the masses want Tanner Bybee, me included. He is by far the most exciting pitching prospect. He's essentially ready by all accounts. I think Logan T. Allen could use a few more starts in AAA. I know he's been great to start this year, but after his promotion to AAA last year, he really, really struggled down in Columbus. So I think it would do him well to get a few more starts in. But I think he's pretty much essentially ready as well. But the hiccup there is he's scheduled to pitch in Columbus Saturday. Another thing to consider is the weather. Miami's coming into town for a 3-game series starting Friday, and the weather's looking a little dicey. Rain is in the forecast for Friday and Saturday for sure. I think it's just going to depend on if there's a window big enough to get, both of these games in, one of these games in. There might be a doubleheader, which could really make things more interesting. Because then you got 2 games in one day. You need a starter for Tuesday, and you do have an off day Thursday, which helps. So that's an option. But I think if there is no doubleheader and we don't see Logan T. Allen get pushed back in the rotation, that obviously eliminates him from the consideration. So what are some other options? You have Xavier Curry. If you've noticed, he's been piggybacking Hunter Gaddis most of his starts so far this year, and he's done a damn good job at it. He's pretty much slated to pitch the same days. He's kind of stretched out, but could still probably only go 4 innings or so. But he's definitely a viable option. He's already on the active roster. Me personally, I'd kind of like to leave him in that long man role. He's excelling there, and I just don't know if I want to mess with that because we're not getting a ton of depth out of our starters right now. So he's interesting. You have Connor Pilkington. Not exciting. We saw what he had last year. He's on the 40. He was the 27th man for the doubleheader Tuesday, never got in the game, but he's really been struggling at Columbus. So I have a hard time thinking it's him. And then there's Tanner Bybee, who is just blowing AAA away. Last night he had an interesting start. He went 4 1/3 innings, allowed an uncharacteristic 3 runs on 5 walks. However, I've heard from many people who watched the game that the umpire was just unreasonable. So I'm not going to look too much into it. However, I also heard that his command wasn't as precise as usual, but all his starts up until yesterday have been very, very good. For example, his previous start came on April 13th. He went 6 innings, allowed no runs, 1 hit, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Overall, in the year, he's 2-0 with a 1.76 ERA in 3 starts, and has 19 strikeouts and 15 and a third innings. So, again, I know a question with him has been holding that velocity, kind of the same thing we just talked about with Hunter Gaddis, just to a lesser extent. He seemed to do that well in his last start, so all good signs there. Of course, he's going to have some hiccups. He's human. And when he does come up, we can't expect him to just blow people away right away. He's going to be a rookie. He might have some jitters. He is human and he's going to make mistakes. So we all need to keep that in mind and kind of reel back our expectations of Tanner Bybee right off the rip. And it's a defense mechanism. Then when he does great, you can be really happy. And, if he struggles right off the bat, you could say you expected it. So another issue from this past week is what is wrong with the bullpen, right? The bullpen has blown 2 late inning leads, late 8th, 9th inning. And let's start with James Karinchak. James Karinchak, he's either throwing meatballs, guys are hitting balls 400 feet, or he's striking guys out. It's just the volatility of him in particular, let alone relief pitchers in general are already volatile. He's allowed 3 home runs already, and all 3 have resulted in us losing the game. His spin rates are down dramatically on his fastball. Like, I'm talking like a 70-something percentile all the way down into the 20s. So that's an issue. He's not missing as many bats. And he struggles with his curveball command at times. We saw that earlier in the year when the Seattle crowd was heckling him a little bit. And then the rest of the time, he just gets in his own way sometimes. So I think to save James Karinchak from himself, you need to kind of step him back maybe into the 6th or 7th inning, just until he can kind of figure out whatever it is that's messing with him. Which would be fine if he were the only issue. But then we have Trevor Stephan, our lights out setup man from last year. Big part of the reason we took the Yankees to 5 in the ALDS. But his velocity way, way down. And he's just not getting strikeouts at the rate he was last year. He had like 11.6 strikeouts per 9 last year. I think he's in the 9s so far this year. So not a huge drop off, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. He hasn't had a clean inning since April 2nd in Seattle. But on the positive side, he's only given up 2 runs in those appearances. So I could see him turning it around. I see hope there. And I already mentioned Xavier Curry. He's excelled in his long relief role. Looks comfortable. He's pitched 12 innings, only allowed 5 runs, and 3 of them came in relief of Hunter Gaddis in that Yankees game when they just couldn't miss. So he struck out 10, only walked 3, and he's got a whip right around 1. So I say leave Xavier where he's at. He's thriving in that bullpen. But that's just my opinion. And then Nick Sandlin. To me, I'm most concerned about Nick Sandlin in that bullpen. He was part of the bullpen implosion on Sunday in DC. He came in after Tim Herron, who allowed a 2-run homer in the 7th, cut our lead to 6-5. So the offense scored. They got 6 runs, but Beaver didn't have a good start. And then, we see the bullpen struggles here. Sandlin came on in the 8th. He allowed a walk and a hit in 2/3 innings pitched. Trevor Stephan, who we just mentioned, came in and relieved him, allowed an RBI single to Joey Meneses. And that was all she wrote. We lost the game by 1, didn't make any noise in the bottom of the 9th, and it seemed like the bats have not been the same ever since. And I kind of just want to throw this in here. It's been a hot topic lately. I think our team is so likable as people that some of us struggle to be objective, right? There's a lot of telling people how to fan going on. And that's where I kind of have an issue, right? In my opinion, they opened some eyes last year, right? We didn't expect them to make the ALDS, and they did. So this year, we have higher expectations. And with higher expectations comes frustrations, right? The bar is being raised just a little bit. So when you're expected to take that next step as a team, some difficult conversations have to be had about guys, right? In the past, 2021, we could leave guys up here to struggle for a while. But now it's like we need to find some production, right? And that's the issue, is the entire lineup is struggling at one time. So the struggles of each individual guy are being magnified by the whole offense as a whole struggling. So that's kind of what's happening here. And I'm going to be objective, right? I'm a fan first. I love this Guardians team with everything in me. I will cheer these guys on until I don't have any more breath in my lungs. But I can also be realistic and objective. And I can mention, like with the bullpen, these guys are struggling and they got to pick it up. Not saying they can't pick it up, but it's a fact that they have been wildly inconsistent so far and they have cost us games. And we're just not used to that from last year. Is it the pitch clock? Is it the cold? I don't know. They got to pick it up. Same with the offense. Now we're seeing the offense slump. The entire Tigers series was an absolute nightmare. But before we get into that, the trip to DC was not all bad. Josh Bell found himself. And I would just like to take my victory lap real quick, everybody, because to all you people who tweeted at me and were in my mentions talking about he sucks, they wasted money, it's a lost season, they got to DFA him, we're going to be stuck with him another year because he sucks so bad. I told you, and I talked about it on last week's episode, this guy is notoriously a slow starter. And it's magnified when he is beginning April on a brand new team. It's even worse, which is what happened this year. First year in a Guardians uniform. I said it before the team headed to DC last Thursday, the off day. I said, you know what? Nationals Park is a perfect opportunity for Josh Bell to find his swing, right? And he even mentioned in an interview with Andre Knott after Friday's game, I believe, that he loves the batter's eye. He loves hitting in Nationals Park. He's comfortable, played there for a year and a half. And man, did he show it. He went 6 for 12 over the National Series with 4 extra base hits, including his first home run of the year, and 3 runs batted in. He even raised his WRC plus to a respectable 75. It's trending upwards. I think it was at 21 last week. League average is 100. So he's getting over that league average mark here, and I have no doubt he will eclipse that in the next couple weeks. Jose, also first home run of the season over the weekend. And hey, the offense scored 16 runs in that series, but the bullpen was shaky. Bieber didn't give him a great start Sunday. He has not been great to open this year. And I think the thing with Shane Bieber is with his velocity down. I know he found his way last year with this low velocity. But I think what I'm seeing with Shane Bieber is he nibbles way too much to start a game. Most definitely that Yankees game. He did not want to make a mistake at 92 miles an hour with those hitters. So what we're seeing is he's nibbling early in games trying to find the corners. And what happens? Some leak over the plate. He gets knocked around a little bit in those first 3 innings. Usually he settles in. But if the offense is struggling, we can't really afford Shane Bieber giving up 2-3 runs in the first couple innings because your team's automatically playing from behind. And for an offense that's struggling as bad as ours is right now, you want them to try and get an early lead. So there were a couple positives in that National Series. They should have swept them. Again, choked that lead late Sunday. The offense played well enough to win in Nationals Park. It's a great hitter's park. But they didn't get it done. And it's disappointing, and it's okay that it's disappointing, right? We expect our team that's expected to win the division and make a run this year. We'd like to see them knock off teams like the Nationals and the Tigers in April. Because sure, you can't win a division in April, but you sure can lose a division in April. If we look back and we lose the division by 2 games, you don't think we're going to look back at this Tigers series and wonder what would have happened if we could have pulled another one of those games out? The goal is to just not develop bad habits during this stretch. These guys are going to break out of it. They're professional hitters. It's what they do. It's just disappointing right now to see how poorly kind of this team as a whole. There has not been one group, like one area on this team where I've been super confident in all year long. Not even Emmanuel Clase, which is saying something. He's not missing bats like he missed. So that's something also to keep an eye on moving forward. So we head into Detroit, right? We're 2-1 on the road trip. We're feeling all right about ourselves, and we think we're about to just head into Detroit and knock around these Motor City Kitties like we've done over the last few years, right? Wasn't meant to be. So Monday's game got rained out, so we got a doubleheader on Tuesday. We have Hunter Gaddis and Peyton Battenfield going in the 2 games for us, and Matt Boyd and Eduardo Rodriguez going for the Tigers. Matt Boyd is not a good pitcher, right? Like, this dude is not good at all. And all these pitchers are coming off injuries. I think Eduardo Rodriguez was literally missing for the majority of last season. And they came in and just shut our bats down. Wasn't even competitive. I think that Eduardo Rodriguez had 10 strikeouts in that game, in game 2, where we didn't even score a run. And why is this happening? I think about this often. Like, this lineup is good. They added Josh Bell. They added Mike Zunino. I thought Stephen Kwan was regression proof. Will Brennan, has looked really good so far in his defense. But we should have got swept in Detroit. I mean, we got bailed out yesterday by a pissed off Jose Ramirez who hit a 3-run bomb after he got called out on strikes due to a just absolutely ridiculous pitch clock violation. They said he wasn't in the box and ready, but Spencer Turnbull wasn't even ready to throw the baseball. So Jose's got like 1 foot in the box, 1 foot out, waiting for Spencer Turnbull to get set. So just ridiculous. I guarantee you the umpires will look back on it and they know they missed that one. But I want to thank the boys in blue for that, because they pissed our slugger off. He came up the next at bat and he just cranked a 3-run bomb to right field, and you could tell he was pissed off, and I want him to be pissed off. So again, I think a big part of this, Stephen Kwan in his last 14 days is hitting 191 with a 238 slugging. He's being pitched differently. He's struggling to adjust. I really hope he picks it up in May. They need to get him going. Josh Naylor in the last 14 days is hitting .079 with a .079 slugging percentage. 4 double plays he's hit into, most of them at crucial points in the game. Just too many at-bats for his lefties. He's 0 for 15 on the year. Just loses all plate discipline in key moments. We need him to kind of reel it in and provide some pop for us. And Oscar Gonzalez hit his first homer in Detroit, which was incredible to see. I hope he can kind of build off that. But again, so we're going to wrap up here. And before we head out of here, just kind of my thoughts on this middle infield mess. So Rosario's been out since Sunday with a bad back. Freeman was called out as insurance, and Eniel De Los Santos went on the paternity list. Things got interesting in the doubleheader Tuesday when Tyler Freeman hurt his surgically repaired shoulder. So he was out yesterday. So the organization decided to call up one of their top prospects in Brian Rocchio to make his much anticipated debut. Oh wait, there's more. Turns out he didn't even get an at-bat. They just brought him up to sit on the bench for a couple hours, just in case something happened to Gabriel Arias or Andres Jimenez. Then on his way out of town, like I mentioned earlier, they sent him with the lineup card for a game that he didn't even get into. And this has been a fascinating discussion. As we all know, Ahmed Rosario was back this year, and they didn't trade a single one of their middle infield prospects. We knew this day would come where this logjam would just be glaring. So shout out to one of our former guests, Todd Paquette, behind the CLE Guards Pro Twitter account, Zach, Sully, for the great debate on this topic. It just irked me tremendously, right? Like, we see other teams laying out the red carpet for their top guys, hype videos, standing ovations, all these things. And I'm not saying any one guy is bigger than the team, but I do think that guy's debut, that moment, should be something that he can look back on and remember. And it just feels like with some of our top guys, it just feels kind of like icky, like service time manipulation, leaving guys in AAA for as long as they can, regardless on if they're ready, just to have depth. And, you know, Christian pointed out a good point yesterday that this team isn't playing well enough to be focused or concerned about their minor league depth options. This entire lineup is struggling and they need a spark. And I just hope that Tito isn't afraid to bench guys because of their feelings, right? I think it's just more frustrating to me that they kept Rosario and they held on to every single one of those guys. Arias, Rocchio, Tyler Freeman, Angel Martinez, Mylan Tolentino, Juan Brito. It just feels like they're not learning anything significant about the potential replacements this year when, you know, Gabby's only getting a couple at-bats a week. He's clearly not comfortable in that role. He's striking out at a 46% of the time clip, which just can't happen. And I don't know. It could be argued that Arias, Rocchio, and Freeman deserve to play nearly every day. The only issue is Jimenez and Jose have two of those infield spots locked down for the next 6-7 years. That leaves shortstop, where immediately you have Arias and Rocchio. And then eventually, you know, you have Angel Martinez, Tolentino, Brito, all those guys. So eventually they're going to need to figure this out. Maybe it happens in July if they're still in contention, which I hope to the baseball gods they are. But just to kind of summarize, I'm just kind of reaching the pinnacle of my frustration with having so many freaking middle infielders that it just really feels like it's time to cash in on some of them and, you know, upgrade the pitching on this team or add another power bat, you know, whether it be a Brian Reynolds or somebody else. Just make it an impactful move to help your major league team if you're not going to use these top prospects. So I just wish maybe call up Richie Palacios his insurance. I mean, I know he's only played second a few times since 2021, but who cares? It's his natural position. I'm sure it's like riding a bike. You know, 98% chance he wasn't going to get in the game anyways, which we saw Rocchio didn't. But yeah, Brian Rocchio's hitting 344 in AAA with a 459 slug, 7 doubles, 10 RBIs, 4 steals, and just the type of plate discipline the Guardians love. 9 strikeouts, 8 walks. He's great defensively, so I don't know what else he needs to do, but I guess at this point he's just going to have to wait till next year. I hope when they do call him up, it's to start. So I don't really know what to do with Arias, Freeman, all these guys. You know, I trust our front office. They typically don't miss, so we'll see. So to wrap it up here, the week ahead, what are we watching? Heading into this weekend. Cal Quantrill left yesterday's start in the 6th. He took a line drive right off his ankle, off the bat of Kerry Carpenter. He's got that dog in him, right? He went to his knees, still threw Kerry Carpenter out at first to prevent the run from scoring from third. So, you know, big ups to Cal Quantrill for definitely having that dog in him. So let's hope he can make his next start. I think he said he could have went back in the game. He just had to walk it off a little bit. So hopefully that was just precautionary. Rosario and Tyler Freeman are both due back. Well, I'm not sure exactly about Tyler Freeman, but they said it was more precautionary. And then Rosario is expected to be in the lineup Friday, as the Miami Marlins head into town. So let's see how they look, right? Are one of these guys going to separate themselves? Is Ahmed Rosario still going to be struggling in that 2-hole? It's going to be a conversation for the rest of the year as long as Ahmed Rosario is on this team and in the 2-hole. He just beats the ball into the ground far too much. Stick him at the bottom of the lineup. You know, if he's getting those infield singles, that'll still be beneficial down at the bottom of the lineup. But again, the weather this weekend in Cleveland looking to be a little rain soaked. So again, keep an eye on if there's a doubleheader this weekend because it's going to make that need for a starter even more complicated. Just due to when these guys are slated to pitch in AAA. Tentative pitching matchups as of right now. Guardians don't catch any luck. They catch Sandy Alcantara and Jesus Luzardo this weekend. Should have been a guard, Jesus Luzardo. Unfortunately, he is not, and he is having a great start to the season for the Miami Marlins. Friday, we have Zach Plesac versus lefty Braxton Garrett. Saturday, we got Bieber versus Alcantara, 2 former Cy Young winners, both struggling a little bit, so that should be interesting. And then Sunday, we got Peyton Battenfield versus the lefty Jesus Luzardo, who's 2-0 with a 2.74 ERA on the year, just striking out everybody. So sure, that will be a blast. But I want to thank everyone again for listening. Keep liking, sharing the episodes. We're knocking at the door at top 5 of Guardians podcast. So keep on sharing. Let's get into that top 5. Like James said, special shout out to past guest Marco Lanave for allowing James and I the opportunity of a lifetime to throw out the first pitch at the Rubber Ducks game. Looking forward to exploring the gorgeous Canal Park and hopefully meeting some of you guys down there. So make sure you message us with more details, anything else you want to know, but stay tuned to the podcast page at Guardians OTCLE for all news regarding Tanner coming on the show and this first pitch coming up in July, as well as anything else that comes up. In the meantime, make sure you're following the podcast. Oh, I just said that. Make sure you head on over to BelieveLandMediaLLC.com is what I meant, so you don't miss any of your podcast written content related to professional sports, Buckeyes, high school sports. You know, we're now entering baseball and softball season. The team's got you covered all across the board. Thank you once again for listening, everybody. And until next week, stay safe, stay healthy, and go Guardians. And go Cavs. Go stomp those Knicks in Madison Square Garden and shut their fans up.